Welcome everyone to another episode of Facility Management Marketing Podcast. You already know this. I'm your host Javier, and so this next podcast episode, it's kind of interesting because I'm going to tell you a quick story here. My sister, at this time right now, it's September, and my sister actually is in town for some work, and so she lives in Nashville, and then she lives sometimes in like Rhode Island, and she has a coworker that is fascinated by the fact that I have a podcast. And she, if you're listening to this, I'm not making fun of anybody by any means. If I don't even know what my sister's coworker's name is, but with that, she's fascinated by the fact that I have a podcast. And I kind of started joking about it. And I was like, I mean, it's just a podcast, like I just, flip on the mic and start recording stuff, and then I publish it, and it's no big deal. But it's kind of one of those things that I think she finds it kind of cool because it's not really her world, and so it's kind of new to her, and so which I totally respect. Not my sister. I don't think she really cares about that kind of stuff because she's in HR and whatever. Anyways, so what I decided to do is that I basically was like, you know what, I already had this planned out to have an episode about podcasting. But I just figured I should just share on how to start a podcast. And really, it's really not that hard to launch a podcast for the facility management industry. So first of all, let me just kind of explain this. There are almost no podcasts in this industry. I want to say there's like 6, okay, if you include mine. All right. And mine is like not even targeting facility managers. It's literally targeting the facility companies that are trying to capture facility managers. And so, my podcast is a very different approach than other podcasts that are out there. And so what I'm telling you right now is that if you've been toying with the idea of starting a podcast in the facility management space or in the property management space, do it, because it's a completely blue ocean at the moment. And I foresee that being that way for the next 3 years, maybe 5 years. And the only reason I say that is because this industry is still behind on adapting some of the digital technology and digital marketing strategies that are used in other industries. They're still behind, and this is not a knock. This is just straight up the truth, okay? I mean, the best way I can explain this is that when I'm not going to even go into detail because I'm going to go into like just another tangent somewhere else. What I'm saying is that if you're toying with the idea of starting a podcast in the facility management space, property management space, just flip and do it, okay? And I'm telling you because this is a great way to creating the basic low entry points to your world or to your company's world. All right. I mean, and you're probably going to be asking me like, well, how much money has this podcast generated for you? I'm not calculating dollars for this podcast, but what I'm calculating is, okay, if I've been doing this for over a year, and then as I start reaching out to other facility companies that might need some marketing work, or when facility companies reach out to me and say, hey, we need some marketing work, and we need someone to kind of guide us and help us with a marketing strategy and that sort of stuff. We're looking for a fractional CMO. Then the easiest thing for me to do is like, excellent. I have like 100 episodes about all the different strategies that I implement and use for marketing. Everything from emails to like paid acquisition to social to like organic, like everything. And so they can use this as a way of like, man, this guy really knows his stuff, or like, this guy's a flipping idiot. I'm not going to talk to him anymore. But it starts, it basically starts deterring the people that I don't want to do business with and the ones that I do want to do business with. So this is like what we call the bottom of the value ladder. So anyone can consume this information. From there, what happens is that when those opportunities happen, whenever I am taking on new clients, to do some fractional CMO, or when they start reaching out to me, they're gonna be like, this guy has been publishing regularly for a year, twice a week, and he has content about all these things. We've been talking about hiring someone for marketing, and then like this guy knows his stuff. He's been in the industry before. He has a proven record, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's the value of the podcast. So don't sit here and start thinking about like, well, I need to see an immediate ROI. Like, and I've said this before, but you didn't go to college. If you did go to college, you didn't go to college and on day one, went to your professor, be like, okay, I need to see an ROI on my tuition because I just paid you $300 for this, this class. And well, I know it's not $300 now, but probably back in the day it was, and so like you don't do that. So why the fuck would you do that for a podcast? A podcast is a deposit. A podcast is an investment into the future. And so I told myself at the beginning of 2021, because I've been sitting on this for almost a year and a half about wanting to do one. I already knew I wanted to do one, but like when to start it, name, and after all, I'm like, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to go in and do it and launch it. So that's what I did. So I basically told myself in January, I'm going to launch this podcast. I'm going to have a whole bunch of episodes kind of lined up and ready to go. And the goal is not to even try to acquire any kind of revenue whatsoever. Now, it probably isn't the smartest approach because I could be optimizing this podcast even more so to try to leverage revenue, to try to get people into my email list and to try to sell them and upsell them to other products and services. I could be doing all those other things. And I know I probably should have already been doing that. But in reality, how I was thinking about this is like, you know what? I'm just going to give. I'm going to give because I want to give. I'm going to give because I want to help. And that is the purpose of this podcast. And if you don't have that as your first thing, as what you're trying to do in a podcast, you're not going to make it very far because you're not going to be willing to put in the work for this podcast. And I'll be very specific on this. My previous role, won't call out the company, look it up on LinkedIn, okay? My previous role, I literally remember having arguments with my CEO about the value of podcasting and how, she wanted us to basically interview these people and then get immediately access to their list and then do some sort of joint venture and all this other stuff. She wanted to see an immediate ROI. And I'm like, but that's not how podcasting works. And I'll tell you right now, when I left back in January of 2021 or 22, all right, she was, all like, we're going to keep going with this whole podcast thing. She has not launched a single episode. Okay. She hasn't launched a single episode. And I'm not knocking her, I'm not knocking the company. All right. What I'm simply saying is that she did not see the value of podcasting, even though I had it systemized. She didn't understand on how it could possibly work, on how we can create deep roots into a specific industry, on why we should be doing that versus trying to create joint ventures and monetize this whole thing and all of that stuff. Like don't get me wrong, I want to make money. Okay? I mean, as a CMO for a technology company, trust me, I'm as close to revenue as possible, okay? Everything we're doing is attached to revenue, all right? I understand the importance of not just doing something and hoping that it pays out, but understanding that, hey, this needs to have implications of future revenue or immediate revenue or whatever that is. But podcasting is like SEO back in 20 years ago, all right? Podcasting is like blogging 20 years ago. If you were blogging 20 years ago, you looked like the fool. But then 20 years later, guess what you've done? You've created so much content that no one could ever catch up to you. You've created so much authority and trust that you are the number one person for X, and you probably know how to get business as well too and monetize from that. All right. Now, with technology today, it's not going to take you 20 years. It's going to take you probably less than that. But that's the purpose of podcasting. That's why you want to do this. Okay. So if you're entertaining the idea of podcasting, I should have already sold you on the value of podcasting. This is going to open up more doors. I mean, I know for a fact, okay, that in my previous 2 roles prior to this one, I started a podcast that was called Facility and Property Management Secrets Radio. And I ended up interviewing a CEO for a Inc. 5000 company. Won't go into details. That led to some future business for us with our company when I was there. And then eventually when I got let go And, I was kind of figuring some stuff out. I reached out to that CEO and offered to do some marketing, offered to do some SEO services. That, in return, has garnered me a significant amount of extra income doing this part-time, okay? And it's because of the relationship I created with that podcast. It opened up an opportunity. So that's what I'm trying to get to, is like, these are going to open up opportunities whenever you're not expecting it. All right. So first thing is first, you need to determine the style of podcast that you want to have. And so there's like basically 3 styles of podcasts. There is the interview style, which most people are accustomed to. It's, you interviewing an expert in something. And that's what I actually did when I was at CMI Mechanical, when I launched that podcast, is I was interviewing people in the facility space. Okay. Now, occasionally I would do my own, like just my solo podcast, but for the most part, I was interviewing people. I was reaching out to folks. And it's a lot of work. Okay. So I will tell you that if you're going to go that route of interviewing other guests, you need to line these people up like weeks in advance or months in advance. And I'm saying this for a reason, because if it's like, crap, I got to put out a podcast, then you trying to go find Joe Schmo to interview for tomorrow's podcast so you can have it, edited and ready to go is going to be very, very challenging. So you're going to want to have like 10, 15 interviews already pre-baked and ready to go, so that whenever those are already launched, you're interviewing more people for the future. So there's a lot of planning on an interview style podcast. And I know I've had people say like, why don't you take guests? I can't believe that. Like, you can go so much further with it. Like, guys, do you know what time I do these podcasts? I do these at like 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night. I can tell you right now, most of my guests are not going to want to jump on a podcast episode. Okay. And like, well, why don't you just take time out of your day and do it during the middle of the day? Because look, I'm so flippin' busy with my current role already as CMO at Ratmate, that breaking up my day to do a podcast interview is going to be challenging. You see what I'm saying? So that's the reason why I decided not to do it. But let's say that you are in the facility management space, like you literally are an IFM or property management company, and you're like the director of business development or something like that, and you decide to host a podcast. You know what? This makes sense for you, because then you can go out and start interviewing facility managers, or you can start interviewing other experts in industries and stuff like that. Like, that would probably make sense for you. For me, it doesn't make sense because of timing. Okay. Now, I am an expert in this space, but the thing to kind of keep in mind here is that I basically spend part of my time and most of my full time in a different space and part of my time in this space. Okay. So that's why I chose not to do it. The other option is doing a co-host. So this is going to be where you have 2 people. Now, a co-host can be essentially like a sports talk radio, if you will. Like, we're all accustomed to seeing that, where you're kind of going back and forth on a topic. Now, you could also interview somebody for this. So you can have a co-host and then you can interview someone. All right. And so you can be going back and forth. Again, a lot of preparation, a lot of stuff to work and time on this, but could be very, very, good for your business or for your podcast. And then the last one, the one that I tend to lean towards, is the solo host. All right, the solo podcaster. And that's what I'm doing right now, where you basically write all the content, you educate, you talk about, you share, you tell experiences, you do all these things. And so I tend to lean in that direction because it's my personality. So keep in mind that my background is very, very teacher driven. Okay. I taught for, good Lord, how long did I teach for? Since I was like 12 and I finished at 20. I taught for almost 30 years. Okay. Like almost 30 years is how long or maybe almost 25. Maybe it was 25 years. I think I taught for almost 25 years. And as I taught, like as a teacher in martial arts and as a coach in personal training and group fitness, you have to be creative on your own. Like, you don't have someone else to kind of help you. You got to create the curriculum. You got to digest all the knowledge, and you got to share it to everybody. And then you got to explain why you're doing this. There's a lot of solo stuff in there, and that's always just been my personality. So This is why I've always leaned towards a solo approach. And I've been criticized for that. Like, well, you can do so much more if you had a co-host, or if you had, or if you're interviewing people. I'm not looking to do that. I mean, maybe next year, I don't know. But right now, the direction that this podcast is going, it makes 100% sense to just do it like this. And then occasionally do an interview here and there, but not lean on those. And the reason I'm saying this is because I'm documenting what is working. I'm documenting what I'm seeing. I'm documenting experiences in the space. I'm documenting experiences in my role that actually overlaps into this space. Like it's a docu-series almost about you getting an inside scoop of my life, okay, on a professional level. All right, so determine what style of podcast you want to have. All right, next is you got to find your perfect niche. And so when I started the podcast, Facility and Property Management Secret Radio, the niche was facility and property management. Okay, so it was very simple. Yes, I know it was long. I understand. And like, man, that's just too long, Javier. Look, sometimes I'm super creative and other times I'm just very pragmatic. All right. It's just, this is what it is. And so that's what I did. I was like, I'm just going to call it this so that when people find the podcast, they know exactly what it is. It's about facilities and properties. That's it. Like, that's nothing sexy about that. For this one, same concept. Now you're like, well, why don't you say property management there? Because I wanted to keep it shorter. Like after you've launched a few of them, you're like, I really fucked that one up. I should have, done this. That's what I kind of did. So this one, Facility Management Marketing Podcast, I kept it that way because it's talking about marketing in the facility space, and that's it. Now, yes, it overlaps into property management. I understand that. The content is the same, okay? I just tend to lean on one word more, okay? But the content's the same. But you got to find your niche. You got to find, like, are you a facility company that focuses only in, let's say, the Southwest region of the country, okay? And you only do work in the Southwest region, and you only do HVAC, plumbing, and handyman. That's it. Then that's a very specific niche. And you can create a podcast for that region, okay, and target it. All right. Now, it's going to be national, but what I'm getting to is that, like, the podcast can be very specific. All right. And so you want to do something that's very niche driven. All right. Sorry, my wife has like the printer going or something. I don't know. So figure out your niche. All right. And it might take you a little time. It might take you a little time to figure out the niche that you want to be in. But if you're like, well, there's a lot of people in there. Trust me, guys, there is not a lot of people in your niche. Like facilities, like the facility management space is not very full whatsoever. Okay. It is very limited in quality content, very limited in like someone is the, the dominant player in this. And that's why I focused on facility management and marketing, is because I wanted to stake my, my place here. I mean, more importantly, I want to help this industry, because in the short amount of time I was actually in there, and then when I was doing stuff on the side, I was like, man, I can do so much more damage in here. And so I'm like, I want to see what else I can do to help. And like, I truly want to, help other facility and property management companies. But, once you figure out that niche, just go all in on it. All right. So just trust me on this. Okay. All right. Next one is that you want to figure out what your cadence is whenever you start doing these podcasts. Are you going to do it one time a week? Are you going to do it 2 times a week? Are you going to do it 3 times a week? And you're like, is it really that important? Yes. Okay. I can tell you right now that, like Apple and Spotify, and then also your listeners love to listen to a podcast that they know is going to be coming out every single X days. Okay. If it's a 5-day-a-week podcast, then you better be flipping publishing 5 days a week. If it's a 1-day-a-week podcast, then you better be publishing on Tuesday or Friday or Monday. And you're like, well, what day is better? It doesn't really matter, because you can consume podcasts whenever. All right. Like I publish on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Those are my 2 biggest download days. However, there are some days that I'm like, where the hell did all these downloads come? Okay, like last week, I think I had in a course of 2 days, like almost 70 podcast downloads. Okay, so I'm sorry, not 2 weeks. Yeah, over 2 days, I had almost 70 podcast downloads. And I know some other people are like, that's not a lot. To me, it's a lot because I've got a very niche industry, all right? But determine what you're going to do. Initially, in my head, I was like, all right, when I launch this, I'm going to do this 3 times a week. And then I started doing the math. And then I started doing like, oh, crap, I'm going to have to put together 3 times 52 is 135? No, 158 or 156 episodes in a year. And I was like, crap, man, that's a lot of episodes. And I'm like, well, I mean, I can come up with 156 pieces of content, but how am I going to record all these and have the time to do all this stuff on top of all the other things I've got? And I was like, well, I don't want to do 1 a week because that's only 52 episodes. And I'm like, well, what's the better solution? So I decided to go in the middle. I went twice a week. That worked for my schedule. And so 52 episodes, that's 104 episodes in a year. All right. Can I do more? Yeah, probably some weeks. Can I do less? I'd love to sometimes, but I made a commitment. And now we're publishing twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Those are the days that we publish. It just worked out for me like that. I mean, you can do whatever days you want, okay? But be consistent. That is the most important thing about podcasting, is being consistent with what you're going to be doing. Like, don't just say, well, I'll do it when I have time. Because trust me when I say this, you will not make time, okay? I've done this in the past, all right? My previous podcasts all were like, I'm going to try to squeeze this one in. I'm going to try to squeeze this one in. This one, I made it a priority to be like, I'm publishing twice a week. Hence why I stuck solo. Okay? Hence why I don't do interviews, because I can actually publish on a regular basis based on my schedule that works for me. Okay? Now, once you figured out your cadence, then you're going to want to map out your topics. Okay? And you're going to want to map out, I would say, a bare minimum of 20 topics. A bare minimum. If you can do like 30 or 40 topics, you're even better. And these are topics that you can actually talk about right off the top of your head. If someone says, hey, Javier, tell me a little bit more about how to optimize your emails, all right? And then I'd be like, well, what are we talking about? Are we talking cold email? Are we talking about nurture emails? Are we talking about sales emails? Are we talking? And then all of a sudden you're like, so then there's like 4 topics in this one question about emails? Well, of course there are. That's 4 episodes. Do you see what I'm saying? And so it's really that simple. It's things that you can literally talk about off the top of your head for like 15, 20 minutes, give or take. Okay, without any kind of preparation, without any kind of research, without any kind of like, oh, let me get back to you on that. Like literally 20 topics at least. Okay, if you can do more, you're gonna thank yourself. Okay, and I didn't say thank me. You're just gonna thank yourself for doing the extra work. But 20 topics that you could talk off the top of your head. And then of those 20 topics, you're going to write out subtopics to kind of be like, and I would talk about this point, and then talk about this point, and this point, and this point. So you know how it goes. Guess what I'm doing right now? I'm looking at my topics and subtopics, okay? And about these things, so I know what to talk about going down my list. And I have a Google Doc that I've got going on. How many pages is this sucker? I have no clue how many pages this thing is. Here we go. 14 pages. A Google Doc going for 14 pages of topics that I've done in the past and that I'm doing in the future. 14 pages. Okay? Write them out. It doesn't have to be super detailed. Just write them out. You don't have to read them word for word. Just write them out. Okay? And so once you do that, then you know what you're going to be talking about. So when you go into recording, you're going to be doing batch recording. And you're going to know what you're going to be talking about for each episode. And so you're just going to just be like, riff at this, like boom, 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 boom. Just go through it all until you're done. Okay? But in the process, you're adding more to your list. So as you're doing things, you're like, oh, this is a good one. I forgot about this. And you put that in. Or you're reading a book, you're like, oh man, I read about this before. And like, this reminded me about this. And you put that in as a topic. And like, oh dude, I was having this conversation with a friend at RIFMA or at Connects, and it reminded me of this. Boom, 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 boom. You type it in. And you keep adding to that list. You continuously add to that Google Doc list. All right. Trust me on this. This is probably like the most important thing you could possibly do is map out your topics, all right? So that whenever you batch record, way easier, okay? All right. So the next thing is once you've done all those little things, you're like, man, this is a lot of prepping before you actually even record everything. Yeah, no shit. It's a lot of prepping. It's work, okay? Podcast hosting platform. So you got to find a podcasting hosting provider, all right? And there's a handful out there. The one I use, and see, this is where I'm not very good at, and I need to get better at this. But like, I think Buzzsprout has an affiliate program. I should be like giving you guys an affiliate link so you guys can download it, or not download it, but like open it, and then I get like a couple extra bucks. You get a discount on your Buzzsprout, but I'm not doing that. Okay, so for a fact, I'm literally giving you the best of the best because I'm not trying to pitch you on affiliate links and stuff like that. I'm literally pitching you on like, hey, this is what's working for me right now. All right. Affiliate stuff will be coming in the future. Right. But I'm trying to earn your trust. That's what I've been trying to do for the past, I don't know, 9 months, 8 months. So podcasting, podcast hosting platforms or providers. Buzzsprout is who I use. All right. So I love them. I've used them for for this one and my previous one. They're great. Another one that you can use in Buzzsprout is BUZZ and then Sprout, like SPROUT. All right. Another one is called Podbean, PODBEAN. All right. So haven't used them before, but Podbean is a relatively popular one. And then the other one is going to be Blueberry. Not like the actual berry, like blueberry. I mean, it is that, but it's not spelt that way. So it's BLUBRRY. All right. So these are the ones that I would probably recommend. And so these hosting providers, essentially what it is that you would then, once you record your podcast, you would upload it to their channel, to their platform. And then from there, you can determine what directories you want to send those podcasts to. So like you can send it to Spotify and Apple and Google and Stitcher and whatever other podcasting directory that is out there. And it does it automatically. So you don't have to do it individually to each one. You do it to one provider, and then it sends it out to the ones that you want. Okay. Recommendation, choose Buzzsprout. Next recommendation, choose all of the directories so that it's just everywhere, because there's gonna be that one random dude that like downloads your podcast from like, I don't know, like podcast or I mean, now what's it called? Casting some, I don't know, but it's going to be like one of those most like, and then it could probably be like your top customer in the future. So just trust me on this, get all of your episodes into every directory. All right. Not just on the major three, which is going to be Spotify, Apple, and Google. And I would even argue it's just two. It's just Spotify and Google, because Spotify has invested a ton of money, resources into growing their podcasting platform. Like this is Alexa as well too. Like, hope she didn't just turn on because she's in my office. So figure that part out. All right. So next is you're gonna be finding a mic. All right. So the mic that I use is called a Blue Yeti. All right. And it is a podcast that connects directly as a USB into my computer. Now, yes, there are higher quality podcast mics out there, all right? Way better. And I probably should upgrade mine because I've had this for like 4 years now. And I feel like the technology has evolved a little bit more. And I've gotten so much more better at podcasting that I kind of want something that's like more badass. But with that, this Blue Yeti only cost me like $100, okay? And it connects into a USB into my computer. Now, there are others that have like, I don't know, like the fatter looking plugs, and you have to get like this box device. Like my friend Scott Hoffman, he basically bought this whole like contraption setup and spent all this money. And I'm not knocking Scott. Scott's amazing, but I don't think he's launched a podcast yet. And I tried to go help him to get it all connected and set up, and we got about halfway there, but then there was something else that was wrong and not working correctly. So where I'm getting to is that don't get like the most badass like stuff to help you the podcast. Just get something that's going to make you podcast like immediately. If you're like, well, I don't want to spend $100 on a mic, then do it on your flipping AirPods, okay? And you're like, that's ridiculous. I've recorded 2 or 3 episodes literally on my AirPods. And I would argue one of those 2 or 3 episodes is one of my most top downloaded podcasts, which is bizarre as hell, okay? So I can tell you right now, don't get me wrong, quality is important, all right? But I'm telling you, people are downloading that podcast because of the content, not because of the quality, all right? So, if you want to just do it or if you want to do it on your phone, do it on your phone, all right? Like literally just pick up your phone and just start talking into it. Like if that makes you feel better to do it that way, by all means, do it that way, okay? Whatever it is, just find a mic and like just Google it, all right? And I know sometimes they're like, well, it's just great whenever you give recommendations and tell us what, okay, here's the thing. I don't know what your budget is. I don't know what style of mic you want. I don't know how you want to host these. Like just all I'm simply saying is like just Google like podcast mic, okay? Or go to Amazon and find a mic on there. And don't spend more than $100, all right? Like trust me on that other piece. Like until you get really into podcasting, you're like, this is amazing. Then invest the money in an actual mic, all right? Now, the other thing is that you might want to get one of these like stands. I don't know what the hell this thing is called. I got it on Amazon, but it attaches, it moves, and it does all these kind of things, and I like it, okay? I don't know how I did podcasting with like my thing that was sitting on down here. Next thing, you want to get, I'm losing my train of thought here. Headphones. Make sure you get headphones. What I would recommend is the ones that I have. I'm not a big fan of these. These are Beats. I like the Beats brand, but I'd rather have, instead of them on the ears, I'd rather have them bigger over the ears. And so it's like it cups it because it feels a little bit more comfortable. These, they feel like they squish my ears. I mean, they're great. And you're like, well, why do you need that? It's because if you're doing interviews, what would happen is that you would be getting feedback from the speaker into your mic, and then it would be like going back and forth, and it would be like a bad, really weird echoing. But by doing it this way, now whenever there's any kind of stuff coming from your mic, from like say you're interviewing somebody, it goes into your ears, okay, and doesn't get into your mic. All right, and so that's the whole purpose. And so I like to hear myself talk, so I know how I sound. So get yourself a mic, and it's super duper important. All right, so next thing is that, what are you going to record it on? There's so many different options. You can record your podcast on Zoom, okay? So like straight up, just open Zoom and just record it on that. And you're like, are you serious? Yes. All right, like record it on Zoom. Me, I'm recording mine in QuickTimes. You're like, well, why are you doing it in QuickTimes? Because there's no internet connection, okay? It's like literally recording straight onto my computer. That is it, all right? So QuickTimes, I'm an Apple user, so QuickTimes is available on my computer. I literally just open QuickTimes. I open a new video recording. You're like, why are you doing video? Because I'm going to be using the video as a promotional stuff to talk about some other things as well too, and use it as snippets and stuff like that, as opposed to just doing audio. That's just me. It takes up a shit ton more space though. Okay, so have I done anything with these videos? Nothing. I've done absolutely nothing with the videos. Do you know why I haven't done anything? Because I have no flipping time at the moment. Okay, so like I'm being as honest as possible here. Am I going to do something with them? Yeah, probably. I might just pay someone on Upwork to just do it for me. All right, but this is kind of what I'm trying to say is like I'm like preparing for like the best case scenario, and then like, all right, I'm just going to pay someone to do this, and then that's what you do. Okay, so that's what I use is QuickTimes. You can record it on QuickTimes. You can record it on Zoom. There's others out there that I've heard. I forget. Riverside, I believe, is the other one. It's like riverside.io, I think is what it's called. That one's pretty cool, I heard. There's another one. Oh man, there's a couple of them out there that you can record the podcast. So all I'm trying to say is that like, don't sit here and be like, but it has to be the perfect one. If you're doing interview style, Zoom is the easiest one. And I say this because everyone knows what Zoom is. Like since the pandemic, everyone's like, yeah, now I know what Zoom is. Good. Here's a link, log in, and let's do this interview. It's that simple. Okay. All right. Editing platforms. So you have two options. You can hire out someone to edit your podcast for you. All right. I would recommend that approach. And the reason I'd recommend that is because it's less things that you have to worry about and less technology you have to worry about. Pay some dude on Upwork like $20 or $30 or $50 to literally edit your podcast. All right. And if they edit the podcast, cool. That takes time off of your plate. Now, if you're like, that seems like a lot of money, it takes time to edit these things. Your other option is like you can edit it yourself. Like I said before, I'm a Apple user, and so I use GarageBand. Okay, so this is what I've done, is I've recorded an intro and I've recorded an outro. They're pre-recorded. Okay, so the intro and outros are pre-recorded. They're already in there. So whenever I record a new podcast episode, I literally just slap in the new episode, all right, into GarageBand. I remove the video. I then move my new episode so it aligns with the intro, and then I move the outro so that it kind of fades in correctly and to the end of the podcast. And then I basically just I save it onto my hard drive, and that's it. And you're like, well, that's pretty easy. Yeah, it is. It's just time consuming. Okay. So like what I'm getting to is like, if you want to pay someone, by all means, hire someone on Upwork and have them do it for you really quick. And if you want, probably a better way of doing this is hiring a VA. And they just do this. They don't have to be someone that's like, podcast worthy and stuff like that. Like if you set up these certain things, just hire a virtual assistant and create the system, and then just pay them, $4, $5, $6, $8 an hour to do this. So you give them 20 episodes to edit, and then all of a sudden it takes them a couple hours or something like that. You just saved yourself a ton of time. So that's what I would do. All right. Why am I not doing that now that I'm thinking about it? So yeah, I mean, the reason I'm still doing it because like I'm refining some of the things that I'm doing. I'm finding some old pieces of content that I've had, kind of stored away. I'm like, I should be using this and I should be using this. I need to launch that. That's kind of the other stuff too. All right, so uploading the podcast to your hosting platform. So you're just going to upload these. So my recommendation is that you batch record. So you record 3 podcasts, 5 podcasts, 10 podcasts, depending on how long they're going to be. You're like, well, how long should they be? As long as you think it should be. However long it takes you to deliver good, valuable content. If it takes you 5 minutes, then that's what the episode is. If it takes you 55 minutes, then that's what the episode is. If it takes you 30 minutes, then that's what the episode is. At the moment right now, this is going towards 38 minutes. All right. But I'm covering a lot of stuff. And so like, we need to cover all these things. But, don't sit here and be like, oh, it has to be, this amount of time. Now, if you start getting to a point where it's like, man, this might be a 2-hour podcast, then chop it up, record the entire thing and then just say, all right, I'm going to stop here because I'm going to start a new episode. Just record it all, chop it up into like 3 episodes. That's what I used to do at when I was at CMI Mechanical. When I was doing interviews, I chop it up into 2 episodes. An interview that was an hour long would be 2 30-minute episodes. That's what I did, and it worked great. Okay, so when you upload these, depending on the package that you have with like Buzzsprout or Podbean, you can upload X amount of hours per month. Okay. And so it just depends on the package. Like I think I'm paying like $12 a month or something like that. I don't even remember how many hours it gives me. And then I tend to go over like almost every flipping month. And so I should probably upgrade, to be quite honest, because my podcast episodes are getting longer and longer at times. All right. So with that, the last piece is promoting the podcast. All right. So there are different ways on how you can promote this podcast. The one way that I did it that's worked very well, I need to go back to doing it again, is literally creating LinkedIn connections with people in the facility and property management space and letting them know about my podcast and sharing it with them and just saying, hey, I have this podcast that I just released. Love to have you check it out, and get your feedback from it. And that's it. No pitch, no sale, nothing. Link in there, and that's it. And then some people are like, great, I'll take a look at it. And they'll reply back. I'm like, man, that was amazing. I love this episode. Can you talk more about this? Or can you have an episode about this? Like, that's exactly what I do. Very simple. All right. So you can promote it on social media. You can promote it on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. If you have an email list, promote it to your email list. If you have a blog, write about it and then have, basically have like show notes or something like that. You can do all those things, connections with other people. Let everybody know about your podcast. Like, that's the thing, is like, you gotta distribute this content in so many different ways. Now, you can also take this podcast and have it chopped up. So what you can do is that you can take elements of the podcast that were really, you're like, oh, at this point, at this minute mark, this is when I talk about this was great. I'm going to have this chopped up into like a 30-second blurb and use that on my social posts. That's perfect. Okay? Like, you should be doing those things. Like, those are great. And then there's different ways in how you can promote it. You can do a video version of it. You can just do like an audio wave thing. You can do all sorts of really cool stuff. But like, just be creative. And like, if you're like, well, I don't know what to do, follow other people that have podcasts and see what they're doing, and just model that. All right. So like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just model what other people are doing. Be like, that's a really genius idea. I'm going to do that. All right. Like, no one's stopping you from doing that. The last thing I can tell you is be patient. Okay. I can't stress this enough. Be patient with your podcast. Don't expect your podcast to explode. I mean, I'm telling you right now, when you're probably listening to this podcast at the moment, I'm recording this in September. I want to say that we just broke 1,500 downloads. By the time you probably listen to this podcast, we'll probably be in October, maybe November. I don't know. We'll be on the verge of breaking 2,000 downloads in under a year. I anticipate probably getting to close to 3,000 downloads, maybe 4,000 downloads by the end of the year, by our 1 year mark, basically the end of the year. And you're like, well, how are you going to do that? And continue to promote it. But I haven't put any money into this other than me paying for like the actual for Buzzsprout and just my time. I've not invested any ad spend into this. I've been approached by multiple people that they'll promote it and grow my podcast and give me more downloads and this, that, and the other. I don't want any of that. All I'm doing is literally just sharing and documenting my journey. Like what I've done in the past, what I'm doing present, what I'm going to be doing in the future, in the facility and property space, what I'm doing in my role as the CMO at Ratmate, and how that overlaps into facilities. Like, I'm literally just documenting and sharing my everything with you guys. Like, books that I'm reading, like when I'm reading a book, I share that. Like, I was reading this, and this is really cool, and you should do this, and this is what we're doing, and we're copying this. But be patient. Don't expect this podcast to turn into like revenue immediately, okay? These are deposits. You're making deposits into the bank. When you make deposits into the bank, you can't be expecting to get a huge ROI. Eventually, you can make a withdrawal, and that withdrawal is going to probably be significant. And there's going to be 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people that are like, yeah, I'm willing to give you some money because you've proven to me that you can do X, Y, and Z. And that's why I do the podcast. And so I want you to understand, like, I'm being patient in this whole journey. What I've learned in my 15 plus years of owning my own business and side hustling and having multiple podcasts and finally getting to a C-suite role for a technology company who's in the verge of raising funds, and we are doing some incredible stuff. What I've learned is that sometimes we need to be patient with some of the things that we're doing. Like, I wanted to be a CMO for such a long time, but I had to go through the roles that I was in previously to get to this position. Okay? I want to do fractional CMO stuff for other facility management companies and other property management companies. But before I do that, I need to prove that I know and I'm worthy and I'm the authority when it comes to marketing in this space. So you got to be patient. So when you do this. If you have 1 listener, give it all you got. If you have 1,000 listeners, give it the same. Get everything. So don't record podcasts for people that are listening. Record podcasts because you want to help. That's the big difference. I remember when I was teaching martial arts when I was a kid, or not a kid, when I had my own business. And when it first started, I had very small classes. I remember teaching classes with 1 and 2 people and 4 people. And I had a $3,500 rent or $3,000 rent per month. And I had classes that were like small at times. I remember teaching those classes, and that was rough. But I gave it all that I had. And I made that, little Johnny very special. Made him feel like he was the best thing since sliced bread. And so I realized that, when I was doing that, I was like, I'm not teaching because I need to have a full class of 50 people. I'm teaching because I love teaching. And so you need to have that same thing. Like if you're going to host a podcast, you need to love what you're talking about. And so I love marketing. Like, love it. It is so much fun. Okay. Do I get burnt out of it sometimes? Of course. Who doesn't? But it's so much fun. I enjoy it. And that's what you need to do too. Okay. So be patient and it will grow. You got to put the time into it though too. All right. So that's pretty much it. That's how you start a podcast in a nutshell in roughly 46 minutes that I just told you on how to start one. And don't hesitate. Like, just do it. All right. This is probably one of the easiest things that you can possibly do to market your brand. I mean, I know a dude that I was interviewed by him. His name is Mason Crosby. And he has his own podcast called The Marketing Ladder. And it just talks about like people that are starting their marketing career and going up the marketing ladder. It's a pretty cool concept. And he interviews different people that are leaders in the marketing space. He's interviewed some like really high profile people. I was one of those people. I don't consider myself high profile though. But others that are like, you interviewed Chris Walker? That's kind of cool. Like, that dude is like, he's awesome. But he's attributed those podcasts to generating, I want to say, close to $500,000 in revenue for his company. He doesn't even own his own company. He literally works for a marketing agency, and those podcasts is attributed over nearly $500,000 in revenue. Pretty spectacular, if you ask me. And the reason why it's generating revenue is because of how he's structured it. All right. A, he's being patient. B, he's interviewing certain people. Or you're like, well, why aren't you doing that? Again, like, he's tied it in a certain way. Am I going to do that for Rapmate? Yes, we are going to be doing a podcast for Rapmate. Do we have the time for it? No, we don't have the time at the moment. Should we make the time? F&A, we should be making the time for this thing. But kind of keep in mind that like you got to have to like I had this conversation with my CEO a lot. He goes, Javier, you're going to have to start saying no to a lot of things. And these things that you're saying no to are like really, really good things. So I'm saying no to a lot of stuff, knowing that I'm saying yes to things that can move the needle really, really well for us. All right. So that's my story and I'm sticking to it. 3 things that I ask at the end of these podcasts every single time. Number 1, please rate our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. All right. Number 2, connect with me on LinkedIn. Yes, I want to connect with you. Like, so if you like this podcast, just reach out, connect with me and be like, hey, I think your podcasts are dope. I love them. Thanks for talking about X, Y, and Z. Cool. Is there something else you want me to talk about? Yeah, talk about this. Excellent. I'll do it next. All right. So I like to engage with my community. All right. I think it's important. All right. I think it's important that you stay rooted and grounded. All right. And number 3, share this podcast. I mean, like, literally just get off your phone and just send a DM to somebody or send a text message to someone and say like, this guy is amazing. You don't have to say that. Or you can say like, this guy's a jerk. You don't have to say that. But just, share the podcast because I'm trying to grow this industry and I really think I can do this with the manner and strategy and approach that I have for marketing. So if you can do those 3 things for me, that'd be greatly appreciated. Other than that, have a wonderful day.